All right, good evening, everybody. It's currently 7 o'clock, and I believe we can start the meeting. We have Jill, we have Jan, me, we have Andrew, we have Chris, Christina, Nancy, and Scott. Right? I do not hear anybody.
Can you hear me, Peter? It's Christina.
Now I can hear you.
Yeah,
we were all muted.
Oh, everybody was muted. Okay, fine. Thank you very much. All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from last month. Unfortunately, I was not here. Any comments about the meeting minutes? Jan?
Just one small point. The fourth paragraph on the second page, it says that Woods has begun an adult reading challenge. It's actually both the whole system. So it should say adult services perhaps has begun an adult reading challenge.
And so second page and
The fourth section down.
Fourth section. So Ms. Sweeney, so Woods, so it says Ms. Sweeney reported that all copies of the OBOT book are out at Woods. And then what?
Adult services. Change
Adult
Woods
services.
to adult services.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.
Ms. Sweeney has a big role in that, but it's a program throughout the entire system.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I guess I'll do it. Motion to approve the minutes as amended by Jan.
Thank you. Second?
Second that.
Chris seconded. Thank you. All in favor?
Okay.
Any nays? Any abstentions? Okay, fine. Thank you. We'll move on from here to old business. Andrew, would you be able to provide us with an update on the space planning?
So no significant changes since the last time we spoke. Jan was, we got the estimate, Peter, you weren't on the call, but we got the estimate for sort of phase 2, phase 1A, if you want to call that, and aligned on having Jan place the order. And we are still in the process of aligning sort of how we're going to be tracking all the space planning spend versus, hopefully you all saw Chris's note as well as David's response. So we're still aligning on how we want to coordinate tracking that moving forward. But with regards to space planning, no major updates from the previous meeting.
Okay, fine. Thank you. Scott and Jan, could you take the lead and provide us with your library report?
Sure. So I'll cover COVID first. Staffing has been a challenge. We had several staff members had to follow exposure protocol or positive protocols, but we kept the branches and we kept both locations open, which I think was a success. But there were some days where things were relatively tight and we were a little nervous. Masking in the children's spaces and during programs has been followed really without much feedback. We haven't heard much negative feedback from the public. Most patrons actually are happy to comply, and we've gotten some positive feedback. And we did have one situation where a family did come in and they did leave when they were asked to wear masks. From operations, so to switch from COVID to operations, the library expanded evening hours at both locations until 8 p.m. That's Monday through Thursday. Winter weather has caused some issues, and I have to get used to Connecticut winter weather and the fact that we just get covered with a sheet of ice. I can tell you that my son's school district seems to close like every day, which is also something we have to get used to. And that's also caused some HVAC and building issues. So, you know, the temperatures are fluctuating like really strange. This week is relatively strange if you look at it. And large buildings, spaces just get cold and hot and it takes a long time. We've had door issues because the metal's expanding and closing. So it's been interesting, but DPW has been on top of it. The library has begun offering limited curbside pickup. That was the staff put a really great plan. Nancy kind of oversaw that plan, and that seems to be working relatively well. I don't think the demand is very high, but it's still great that we can provide that service. And we went live at both locations with self-checkout, and a lot of people asking for it. We haven't seen a lot of usage, but we're hoping that that changes as time goes on. And then for programs and services, I'm going to hand it over to Jan.
Scott, were you aware that they have ice and snow in Albany?
Oh yeah, I get updates, but ice and snow is nothing. Like this is it's just different.
Well, this is the first year this has happened. Fairfield has been Camelot.
Really, I think you all then forgot how to drive specifically on Route 8 when there's ice on the roads. So
No. That's not us. That's the state of Connecticut. They never learned how to drive, like as a whole. Lane is their way to move all the time.
It's
That's-
a huge adjustment moving from Albany, growing up outside of Albany and coming here. It gets walkable, but when you're here long enough, you become like everyone. You become like everyone else, and you don't want to drive either.
And then you take your bad driving habits to Florida.
I've already been accused by someone else in my household that I'm starting to drive like I grew up in Connecticut.
Well, you did.
It's better. I get accused of learning how to drive in New Jersey, which is basically bumper to bumper at 90 miles per hour. So
Yes, been there. Yeah.
Jersey. Woohoo! Here for Jersey. Where did you end up, Scott? Just as a side, where did you
We're
guys
up in
end up moving
Seymour.
to?
We ended up in Seymour. It just
Good for you.
yeah, and it's a little town. We really like it, and we just kept getting priced out, and we have to keep going farther north in order to find something that we could.
Tough. I'm
Yeah,
so
it
happy
was
for you
it
guys.
was tough. It was Jan watched me every day getting more and more stressed out because every time we thought we had a house, it was gone already.
It's a ridiculous market, so that wasn't fair to you, actually.
Yeah, but it ended up working out. We're in a house that was built in 1850, so I'm excited about it. But there's a lot of. I spent my entire Sunday yesterday fixing under the sink, and it exploded, and it was chaos. So
That's not fun.
Do you make house calls, Scott?
you do not want me working on your plumbing.
Okay.
You
All right.
that's
Can I ask you a question? Sorry about that. What about did you hear Lamont's press
Yes.
conference, February 28th? So I'm sure that may change the town's regarding masking, because I know the university is also having conversations about that right now.
We already plan to meet with our head of youth services, or I'm already emailing our head of children's to talk tomorrow about how we're going to handle everything. And my staff will attest that between 3 and 4, I'm on COVID number watch. Basically hitting refresh on Governor Lamont's Twitter feed to get the numbers and then compare them. And I know, much like New York, that the later the numbers come out, the worse the numbers are. So that's my pro tip is if the numbers come out, if you see the numbers coming out early, that usually means the numbers are good. If they're coming out around between 4 and 5, that means the numbers are bad. But let me hand it over to Jan.
But he had a press conference today about
I
stuff
watched
in the
it.
mask. Okay,
I watched it
fantastic.
before.
Just
Yeah, I
wanted to
watched
make
it
sure.
before the meeting. But thank you, Christina.
And
So as you know, this month we're focusing most of our programming on the OBOT book, which we have the author coming on March 1st. So we have 4 book clubs that are discussing House in the Cerulean Sea. And we had Dr. Schenker, the ever popular Dr. Schenker, talk about the book last week. And interestingly, it was a hybrid program, and we had less than 10 people in the library, but there were 35 people on Zoom. Just to contrast with that, Claudia's book club had 30 people in the library and 4 people on Zoom. So it's very hard to predict and know what it is that people want. They seem to still want both things. So we're able to support that and continue to have hybrid programs.
Jan, can I just add one thing to that? I have had several members of the public contact us, making sure that the OBOT program is done both virtually and in person. So if you're asked about that when you're out and about in the community, let them know that they can go. There's a separate listing on the website that they can register for the virtual, and we're making sure that it's a relatively high quality feed this year. I'll leave it at that. Sorry, Jen.
Yeah, and that booked up so quickly, like the first day. Incredible. I couldn't believe it. I wasn't really expecting that to happen that quickly, but I believe that people are really enjoying this book and want to see the author. There's a new art exhibit in the gallery. The reception for that will be on Thursday from 5:30 to 7:30, if anyone would like to stop by. We have a program tomorrow on cat behavior, and there are 43 people signed up for that, a virtual program. Who knew? But anyway,
What time's that at?
what time?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
Write that
either
down.
6:30 or 7.
It's perfect. I'll send her over.
God, that's too bad. I've got
It's on
another
Zoom.
meeting.
It's on Zoom.
That's on Zoom. What are you sending the cat over?
I'll make sure the cat's wearing a mask. What we got?
So for our year-long reading challenge, that is going very well. People are very interested. We have about 200 people signed up for that, and they're completing the activities and gaining their badges. Children's programming, the in-person programming is filled with waiting lists, and they're also still doing very well with their Zoom programs and getting big numbers for those as well. So Saturday was Take Your Child to the Library Day, and we had bullying program for the Children's Department put on, which was quite good, I understand. Another children's program I just want to tell you about is Business Leaders. It's a 7-session program where the kids are learning how to run a business. They're making a business plan, they're doing marketing, they've come up with products to make. It's really quite intricate. It's almost like a junior achievement kind of thing. So that is for grades 3 through 5. I'm like astonished that they can do that, but that's really going great. And in the teen department, all the programming right now is in person. The Down Under at Woods is full on most days. There is a teen council, which works with the teen librarian. They meet once a month, plus a lot of them are regulars, so they help her out with a lot of things. And they share opinions and suggestions, and they're working on some things for summer reading right now. So that's all good. Any questions about programming? A lot going on.
Good. Great, Jan. Thank you. Scott, could you provide us with the financial and budget update?
Sure. So right now, finance spending wise for the town budget is where it should be for this time of year. Materials is slightly higher. However, that is normal. A lot of publishing comes out before Christmas. So libraries tend to buy a lot more material beforehand, but everything's in line. Nothing is really, nothing is abnormal. I guess I don't know if that's financial terminology, but everything looks good. I sound like Han Solo on the Death Star. Everything's good.
And,
Yes,
and
Jen.
I'll just add that our new administrative assistant is now become a pro at making purchase orders. So this is going to help us to spend. So she's really coming along quite nicely.
It's amazing how that trade comes along really, really quick. Sorry. Like,
Fine.
never mind.
That's okay. It's fine, Chris. Nothing, your financial report is the same as your budgetary report because you're going to take us through developing the fiscal year 23 budget?
Yes, that's part of new business, is just to give an update
Okay.
on the budget.
Okay,
process.
with that, Chris, can you segue in to provide the treasurer's report?
Yeah, sure. So I think the key thing on the treasurer's report, I sent out a 2-page PDF and then a 1-page explanation as to where we are with the space planning. I think the key thing to look at, if you open up the PDF, that's FPL endowment funds through Q1 22. If you go to the second page, which is very large on my screen, you'll see this is where the quarterly numbers have ended up for our 2 main investment funds. And if you look at it, what we're seeing right now, these are, actually, it got truncated, so I apologize for that. Never mind. The key thing here is that we've been doing really, really well. Again, obviously through the through just by investing in the S&P 500. The last month has been very, very bad. We've been a little bit we've been able to stave off the worst of it just because we're diversified out of just being 100% in S&Ps, and we're right now about 60-40 between equity and debt, and that's essentially allowed us to stave off the worst of it. The market itself is off about, I think, about 12, or was off about 12% off its highs. It rebounded a little bit over the last couple of days, but we're not necessarily partaking in the down or the up, so we're kind of steady as she goes. Second thing I think worth opening is the second page that I opened up, and this is kind of an update as to where we are right now with the library space plan. So just as a memory jogger, back in June of 2021, we approved a one-time $250,000 drawdown to cover essentially our phase 1 spending. Now that was intended to be for $225,000 plus a little bit of space in the event of something going wrong. We are fortunate. Phase 1 has cost us a little bit under $207,000. So that gives us a remaining amount of about $43,000 that we can roll into this year. Coupled with the fact that in 2021, if we look at our drawdown, it's 90, or the amount we're going to take out of the fund this year is going to be a little over $97,000. Put together, we're going to have about $141,000 of available funding to fund our space planning. Right now, our most recent estimates as of Andrew, when was that estimate? Was that estimate about 4 weeks old or 6 weeks old?
That's 6 weeks.
6 weeks. So it's 6 weeks old. We're going to come in around 157, 158. So at some point later on in the year, for space planning, we're going to need to go into our funds and draw down additional, say 16, 17,000. Again, let's assume something else something else becomes more expensive. That's probably going to come into the tune of around 25,000. So I think one of the things to think about, and obviously this is not necessarily the venue right now, but sometime in the next 2 to 3 months, I think, just to get ahead of it, we may want to say, have a vote where we collectively agree that when the time comes, we're quickly able to go in there and draw out another 25 or 50, depending on what we think that, the buffer that we ultimately need is available to do in order to, effectively pay our bills. What I suspect is going to happen, and I would love to hear Andrew and Jan's opinion on this, is the next tranche of money that we're going to need is going to be sometime in the middle of the year. Which probably means the invoice is probably going to be somewhere around June, July, because I believe our payment terms are like net 30. That means phase 3 would come in sometime around Q4, and part of what we're calling phase 3, which we believe is going to cost about $51,000, may bleed into next year. So the 25 to 50K that we may or may not need, we may not need because it simply just rolls into another year.
Okay.
So
Any questions? Comments? Nothing.
crickets are
You're an easy group. No one. David said to me, this is going to be very difficult. He provided me with a full in-service training. told me how people misbehave and what I should do when they misbehave. And he even told me, he said, if you really get into trouble, here's my phone number. So I guess.
Oh, I don't believe that for a minute.
I was gonna say it might be the other side of the phone that was the problem.
Probably is. You're talking to my wife, right? Okay, thank you. Is Leanne Ratner with us? No. Which brings me up to a conversation I had with David the other day. Scott, you and I are supposed to talk at some point about fundraising. And as I said to David, I don't want to do anything where we're not in sync with the friends of the library. Would it be possible for you to set up a meeting for the three of us, Leanne, you and I, to talk? Scott?
We should probably include Danielle in that as well.
That's fine. Whoever you think we need to include, and so that we could sit down and talk about going forward with fundraising. I don't know Leanne. I've never met her. Or maybe I did meet her at that one event that we went to. Okay, thank you. New business. Scott, you want to take us through the budget process for fiscal year 23?
Sure. So far we've met with myself and Jan met with first we met with the first select woman staff to discuss the budget. We did kind of a preliminary ask, and then we got asked to come back to have a conversation with the select woman herself. Those were fairly good and positive conversations. Our hope is to see somewhere between a 4 to 6% increase in our operations budget, which would be positive. This would include some additional custodial staff and an increase to the materials budget. So far, relatively positive. We came in asking for more. We didn't expect we were hoping for a little bit more than we got, but we're happy with where we are so far with the budget. So the next steps is Thursday, February 24th, or I'm sorry, February 23rd is the select woman's budget presentation. The library's budget will be part of that. And then the hearings begin, and we have yet to get our hearing date. So they're on the 24th, the 28th, March 10th, 15th, 16th, 22nd, or 24th. One of those dates, we will be asked to present as the library will be asked to present and be asked questions by the Board of Finance. So that's what Jan and I are kind of working on right now. I'll say that the budget, the new budget director is fairly easy to work with. Frank has been really good, has really provided us some great information. So we're going to be talking to him more to help us kind of prepare for more. And then on the 26th, there's a public budget comment session. My hope would be that maybe a trustee or a member of the Friends or 2 or 3 could make comments at the public comment during the budget comment session. Then the 28th is the Board of Finance. They go into a public executive session. 29th is the Board of Financial potential snow or ice makeup day. Then the final vote for the Board of Finance is on the 31st. And then the RTM will meet about the budget. That's April 6th. They have scheduled another budget hearing for the RTM. That's the 7th. And I'll share all this information in an email with all of you. And then there'll be a vote on May 2nd. And then there'll be a final Board Finance meeting, mill rate setting on May 5th. So as things develop, as we get a date for the day of our presentation, I will definitely share that with the board. But more importantly, I would absolutely love to talk to some of you to make sure that on that Saturday, when there's a public comment period, we do get some people to comment about the importance of the public library. I've heard Jill present, do public comments before. Jill, was it you? Yeah, I thought it was Jill. Someone did. Or was it Chris? Someone did.
I think we helped write up some materials, but I think David And right, Christina, did you go?
I thought someone from the board did it. I heard someone speak on our behalf and they were
There
really
was
good.
somebody from the, I mean, Duncan had done it, Sonal, David. I'm trying to think of anyone else. Those are the folks who that I, and then we
Well-
also, Scott, we also had email templates that we would send out too. So we definitely will want to do that. Jill, I think
Okay,
you
so-
did that. I think you drafted that, right?
Yep.
We definitely should do everything possible to support the budget and for us to be there in person at any hearings which it's appropriate for us to be at.
You can definitely do that, Scott. We'll figure out who can do that. I'm more than happy to go this time. So
Yeah, so am I, Scott.
Thank you. Yeah, I just think it's good for them to hear. I mean, I will say the Select Woman's Office has been very positive, has been very easy to work with. They seem very supportive. You know, they're trying to get me ready for the, you know, to go before you know, the Board of Finance. I have watched all the videos or listened to all the videos. I think Jan's got me pretty prepared, so I'm ready. I can handle it. So, you know, I'm kind of looking forward to it. So I'll get there, but it definitely will be great to have support of trustees. And I'm going to be sharing this with the friends as well, with the hope that they'll share some information as well. And I know Jan's got my back, so I'm not nervous.
Okay, great. Scott, would you like to talk about the community report?
So we're kind of renaming the thing we were calling the infographic because I really like to kind of call it a community report. So it's in the packet that Jan sent out, which is the one page. So that one page that you all received, and we listened to your feedback. We have some great quotes, some great pictures, the Halloween parade, all of those things thrown together. So that's one single sheet. That's actually going in as a middle sheet to the program guide, as well as at some point we will be emailing that out to our entire email list. On top of that, we're going to be making some social media kind of graphics, and we'll be sharing those on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I asked trustees and friends and supporters of the library to like those things and to share those things, because the more they're liked and shared, the more they kind of rotate out there. And right now, as we kind of learn this new normal, social media still kind of rules the conversation in the community. So it's really important that we generate this stuff and we get it out there. And those things are kind of, the algorithm is played with through all of you liking those things. Like I said, we'll be doing an email blast, and we've also kind of condensed the statistics part of the community report into a bookmark, and we're going to make sure our circulation staff are putting them in everybody's books so they can see that. That's really kind of like the push that we're going to do. I might think about, you know, we don't want to go too hard, because especially if we have a lot of support and we don't think we have to have a big fight, we don't want to be antagonistic or seem like adversarials. But, you know, as we go along through this process, we'll figure out more and more and how much we maybe need to amplify this, or maybe we just stay a steady course. This is why you all may have hired me. This is my level of expertise. So I think we've got a good plan ahead of us to kind of get this out there. It's really about bragging about the library, and it's a good time to brag about the library because it's budget season. So I'm really happy with the product that we've produced. And we're going to get it out there in different formats.
Like the quotes a lot and the photos. I think it's a really big improvement. You could probably get some great ones on the group study rooms too. Everybody's
Terrific.
raving about those.
That's next year. We got to save some stuff for next year.
Looks really good though.
Thank you.
Terrific. Yeah. Okay, good. Any additional items for tonight's meeting? I have a question or maybe a comment. We're all watching the latest situation where suddenly books are being burned, banned, and while it has not come to Fairfield, has there been any thought for us to either do a op-ed in the newspaper, the local newspaper, or a letter to the editor, essentially reminding people that one of the strengths of our community is the fact that we do have a vibrant library and that we believe in freedom of thought, freedom of speech, etc. Has any thought been given to that, or is that not something we would do as a semi-public entity? No? No thoughts?
Peter, I can say the university library, in terms of education, we've always done there's Banned Books Week that's in September, and we are doing a program on Thursday called Reading Between the Lines, a discussion about the recent ban of mouse and anti-Semitism. It's on Thursday. I put it in the chat. I think that's a really, like, in terms of educational, like, programming, I think that's a good way of doing it. And I'm not sure if Dan and Scott are thinking, like, or Nancy, about programming in this way, and if you've done that before. I'm not sure about statements, but I think in terms of community conversations about this, because I agree, Peter, those numbers of whether it's banning or just, school boards, contesting things it's increased exponentially this year, the last couple years. So yeah, I love the idea of more community conversations. And again, I did put something in the chat that's what we're doing on Thursday. Anybody's invited to it. And perhaps if it's something you're interested in, maybe we could also do it at the public library too. So that particular one.
Any other thoughts about it?
So I don't know if Peter knows this, but I'm in grad school to get my library science degree.
I know you are.
This has become a really big topic in my classes, to be honest with you. And, not unexpected, right, that we're talking about it. So far, the discussion we've had about it has been around about school libraries in particular being targeted, right, by school boards themselves, town management of those schools, in terms of the content. I don't think it could hurt. And I think Christina's idea around doing it as a programming topic, because it is getting bigger and bigger on social media, people talking about freedom of speech and freedom of learning and that kind of thing. But so far I've seen it to be more about in schools, school libraries, and children. But I would hate for that to start to creep this way. And from what I've heard, I've talked with a couple of the board too. I think it depends on your board in your town too, right? I find that the boards themselves really need to be the on the front line on that as well, to make sure that we're supporting keeping that open.
I don't believe we have any policy around book challenges. Jan, do we? I'm not seeing anything on the website.
Yes, we do have a form actually where people can fill out the form to challenge. It's never happened in my 9+ years.
But do we have any policy that's connected to that form?
Well, it's part of the collection development policy.
Okay.
It's addressed in there.
No, I like
Just a
it.
thought.
No, I like the idea of us doing maybe a program around it or a discussion. Maybe it's something we reach out to the school librarians and say, hey, do we want to do a joint program around this if you're comfortable with it? So we'll do a little bit of we'll do a little bit of work and see if there's
Okay,
what we can put together.
just a thought. Did you follow the news? I think it was yesterday or earlier, late last week, about that so-called pastor who engaged in book burning of Harry Potter.
Yeah, it's not the only thing that pastor is engaged in.
Well, of course not. We know. That's the latest to get attention, but but he got attention, so others can follow. All right, thank you. I appreciate it. Are there any other issues for tonight?
This isn't an issue. This is just a suggestion and a question more than anything else. So, Jan is always very helpful with me when I ask her certain questions about, do we have a policy on this? Do we have a policy on that? She's very, very helpful. And so I'm in a crisis management class for libraries at the moment. It's been really great. I absolutely love it. And one of the things that we had to do was review and critique. Ultimately, we have to create one, but review and critique a disaster plan for libraries or an information service, whether it's a museum, things like that. And Jan was kind enough to share with me the emergency, I think it's emergency response preparedness document, right?
Employees Emergency Procedure Manual.
Manual, yeah. And my question is, do we, I mean, and Scott, given your experience as well as Nancy and Jan, you know, do we think this is something we should think about down the road? I know the town probably has a plan, and I know we have that emergency response corps in town, right? That volunteer group in town that has been very active with COVID. But I'm just wondering, given that we've had hurricanes and flooding and that kind of stuff, whether we think we need to create some kind of disaster response plan depending on the type of event that happens. God forbid an active shooter, that kind of stuff. Do we have anything written out or thought to or talk through?
So
Library?
one conversation that's been happening is after I attended the active shooter training that the town put on, which was excellent, is there was some conversation with the town that in the spring, we're going to work with the police to do a walkthrough and kind of a review of that plan when it comes to active shooters. But I love the sound of that class. I think that might be something for us to explore. That might be something I put on my list of goals for things for us to look at moving forward in the future. It's a disaster plan, a review of the disaster plan, and then kind of carving out some additions for the library.
Right. You know, and it covers a range of things, right? It's not only about protecting you and our patrons and the library itself, but also recovery coming out of that. If it's because we're considered a community center, and I know we want to push for that more and more for people to be thinking of us that way. It's just something that I was just really triggered about. And I just wanted to ask about it. That's all. If that was something you guys thought of.
No, I like that idea.
Okay.
Okay, good. That's definitely something we should follow up on. I know that at my synagogue, we put together a disaster plan, and the sooner we do it, the better, because you never know anymore, the world we're living in.
Mm.
Any other points? No? All right, I understand that David will be sending out a report card evaluation. You should be receiving it shortly about my chairing of this committee. So just think of me as being Apple's support, and you gave me a good review. Thank you, everybody, for tonight, and appreciate it. Do I have a motion to adjourn? No motion. Nobody wants to adjourn.
I'll do it.
Jill?
I'm afraid of being associated with the too quick at the 7:42 ending time. Like that's what it comes down to.
Duncan?
Of
Where's
course,
Duncan?
Rogers. He couldn't get out of here quick enough.
That's called the Duncan. That's called the Duncan vote.
7:39 would have been better. Just kidding.
Okay, Jill, you moved first. We have a second, Chris. All right, so moved. Thank you very much, everybody. See you next month.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
Thanks,
Yes.
everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.